Hi, this is Kristen, and I wanted to give you guys a brief synopsis of some of the highlights of the Chapter 7 lecture. So I did this little screencast-o-matic. Hope you enjoy it. So I think this is a really important phrase from Brian Wozniak. He's a professor at Cornell University. The best diet is the one you don't know you're on. As we know, most Americans are overweight. In fact, 67% of Americans are overweight or obese. And we'll talk about what the definitions of that means. But what we do know is that people can lose weight, they just have a hard time maintaining their weight loss. So when we look at all these different types of fad diets and what works and what doesn't, the best kind of diet to be on is the one that you can stick to. So again, 2/3 of the population are overweight, 1/3 are obese. There's a lot of red flags. We look for that central adiposity is a big red flag for health risks, and also a 10-pound weight gain within a year is a red flag. And this is the prevalence of self-reported obesity rates among U.S. adults, and this is the food for thought. And I just wanted to comment on the rapidness of this change from 1985 to 2008. We went from having very few states with 30% or more obesity rates to the majority of states with 30% or more obese and overweight to 3 of those states having more than 35%. So this is another synopsis of that. Now, when we talk about the science of weight loss, I think it's important to understand that it's really a simple balance equation. So if you look here, we have one side is dietary intake, and this comes from everything we eat. And what we eat is what contains calories, and those are carbs, fats, proteins, and alcohol. On the other side, we've got the things that burn the calories: adaptive thermogenesis, basal metabolism, physical activity, and the thermic effect of food. The thing that I want you to keep remembering is that the basal metabolic rate represents 60 to 70% of the total energy needs. It's the largest portion of the calories burned. When we look at what influences basal metabolic rate, the most important things are body surface area, height and weight, so how big you are, lean body mass, your thyroid function, your age. Keep in mind that physical activity is also a contributor to the calories that we burn, but only about 20%. The thermic effect of food represents a very small portion of the calories that we burn every day, and it's considered kind of like the sales tax. It's sales tax on food. It's how much energy is needed to digest, absorb, and metabolize those nutrients. And again, adaptive thermogenesis is really non-exercise activity, like helping regulate our body temperature, shivering, fidgeting. It can vary substantially between people, and it represents about 10%, 5 to 10% of the calories that we burn. How do we tell how many calories somebody needs? Well, the most scientific way is this direct calorimeter, and that's actually where you put somebody in a metabolic chamber and you actually measure exactly how much heat they output. It's obviously very expensive and complex and not done only in very few research studies. This indirect calorimeter is where you measure how much oxygen is consumed related to your energy expenditure. And that's done sometimes in studies, but not typically for most people. So the other way we have is to estimate it. Okay, so this is a measure of the indirect calorimeter. And these are some little body gems. These also are some pictures that try to measure how much oxygen you're consuming during a related energy expenditure. These are the mathematical equations to estimate energy requirement, if you want to play around with those. Okay, and this is the physical activity factor, because really how many calories you need is based on your height, your weight, your age, and how active you are. So what do we determine as a healthy weight? Well, a healthy weight is one that's appropriate for your age, is maintained without dieting, promotes good, healthy eating habits, and allows for physical activity. These are some ways to kind of determine how to find your healthy body weight. And this is kind of an idea of the portion distortion that I think we have. 1,050 calories. This is just under, or what most women need in a day versus the 650. So let's look at how do we evaluate body weight. One of the things that we do is body mass index. We also look at body composition. How much fat do they have? And then even more importantly, where is that fat put on the body? Okay. Skin calipers are kind of a cheap, simple way. Underwater weighing is the most effective. Not, again, done, it's very accurate, but not done widely. There's a couple more, the bioelectric impedance, the DEXA scan, the air displacement for the bod pod, if anyone's ever seen that. And what we're really concerned about is where people put their fat. The high risk cutoff points are 40 inches for men and 35 inches for women. And this apple shape is the one that's associated with more disease. And the pattern does change with age, especially for women, because it changes the way that they start to gain fat, and they tend to gain fat more in the central adiposity than in that lower adiposity. So when we look at the BMI factors that relate to being overweight or obese, a healthy weight's between 18.5 and 24.9. Overweight is 25 or greater, obese is 30 or greater, and the severely obese is the category I'm most concerned with. This is the most rapidly growing category of obesity in the United States right now. This graph gives you an idea that as BMI goes up, so does the risk for mortality. So we know that becoming overweight is one of our biggest health concerns in the United States right now, because it leads to our degenerative diseases that we suffer: heart disease, stroke, cancer, high blood pressure. This is the mathematical equation for how to calculate your BMI. I've also given you in the notes a link to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute where you can just put it in. And then I want to talk a little bit about why fad diets are really a disadvantage, whether that be a high protein diet or an extremely low calorie diet or the grapefruit diet or whatever those might be. It doesn't really address the chronic severity of the disease of obesity. Obesity is really a combination of both nature, meaning the genes that you were born with, and the environment that you live in. And really, today's world, the obesity epidemic is largely fueled by our food source. Our food sources are driven by foods that are highly profitable and highly processed, and these foods typically have excess calories, excess sodium, sugar, and fat, and lead to some of this obesity epidemic that we're facing. It is estimated that the #1 calorie consuming item in the American diet is sweetened beverages. That's just not soda. That means sweetened teas and Gatorades and juices and all of those pieces. One of the most important things in managing weight loss is controlling the calories that someone eats. Exercise is important, but it's actually more important in weight maintenance. If you look at the discussions for this week, there is a discussion topic on the exercise myth, and I think that would give you a lot of insight on why exercise isn't the cure-all for weight loss. And then the last piece is the behavior modification. Learning to make behavior changes, whether that be the quantity that you eat or the times that you eat or the patterns in which you eat. One of the things I frequently tell people that I work with is don't ever eat in the car. It's it's kind of a mindless eating place, and you don't really know how many calories you consume. You don't really know if you're hungry. It's usually out of boredom. Another thing that I'm big on, and you've probably seen it in some of my discussion posts, is the concept of drinking calories. Don't ever drink your calories except for low-fat skim milk. Other than that, no juice, no smoothies, no shakes. Your body just doesn't register that you're consuming calories when they're consumed in the liquid form. And that can lead to an overconsumption in calories, which in essence is really what leads to weight gain. It's not a particular type of calorie that's any more harmful. It's that in general, people tend to overconsume the number of calories that they eat and under move so that they're not burning as many calories. So controlling those calories, another important piece is looking for low fat, high soluble fiber. What that does is it helps promotes that satiety. Remember, all the research studies show that no diet, whether it's low carb, high protein, low fat, has a metabolic advantage. The key to calorie control is eating less calories in the day, and that leads to burning more calories, and that leads to weight loss. The food log is important, and studies have actually shown a strong correlation between people who keep a food log and the success that they have in not only losing the weight but keeping the weight off. Regular physical activity is critical, especially for weight maintenance. These are the physical activity recommendations. There's a couple of links. And it kind of shows you that people are probably more likely to be walkers, and that's a great place to start. This National Weight Control Registry, I'll put a link to that under the lecture. It's a very interesting website because it is gathering data on people who have lost more than 50 pounds and kept it off for more than 2 years. So it's that subset of the population that loses weight and then keeps it off. And the thing that they found that these people engaged in was regular physical activity, eating breakfast, and following a low-fat, high fruits and vegetables diet. What does it take to lose a pound? It takes 3,500 calories. So what that comes down to is that comes down to about a decrease of 500 calories a day. This talks a little bit about some ideas for changing behaviors around foods. Look at what some of the concepts that people posted on this National Weight Loss Control Registry. And that's it. So I will post the National Weight Loss Control Registry. Actually, it might even be right here to get you to that. And this gives you some really good, it's actually put out by James Hill, who is a professor at CU, and talks a little bit about not just who's in the study, but it talks a lot about the research findings. So this is kind of interesting. 80% are women, 20 are men. It shows their average ages. It talks about their physical activity. And this is interesting down here. 78% of those people who are on the registry eat breakfast. 75% of them weigh themselves once a week. 62% or less watch less than 10 hours of TV per week. And 90% exercise about an hour a day. So those are kind of interesting. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.